seats, please. Okay, so welcome to this meeting, which in fact, as you know, if you're a seasoned attender at these sort of things, is in fact two meetings. My name, if you don't know me, is David Henderson-Slater, and I'm going to be chairing the second part of the meeting. I'm the lay vice chair of the PTC. Jonathan's asked me to chair that part of the meeting. So welcome along. We're going to try to finish completely by 1:45, and therefore I'm going to be quite robust in the chairing of the second part of the meeting. The first part of the meeting is over to Jonathan. I've been asked to remind you that to be able to speak during the meeting, you must be on the electoral roll, and the same applies if there is any voting. You must be on the electoral roll if you're going to vote. So if that's a surprise to you, I'm sorry about that. I have to confess I didn't know that myself until about 5 minutes ago. So it's probably too late to join the electoral roll for this year, but I'm sure you can do it next year. So over to Jonathan.
Thanks very much. We'll keep this bit brisk as well, I think. A very warm welcome, as David said, to our APCM. Do we have any apologies? So Sheila, Amanda's apologised for my life. Claire Horseman. Thank you. Yeah. Is anybody else?
Lillian Stella.
I've got some others, I will let you come up. Okay. Likewise, if you're joining us by live stream and you would like your name to be included in the attendees of this meeting, as being present here or be it remotely, and if you send an email to us at office@cumberland.org, if you wonder why I'm on the side screens, just looking up, everybody here, the camera's up there. So we're talking into screen, but hopefully. If you want to be registered as here, then send me an email to say that you were watching it, and we will make sure that your name is entered onto the minutes as well. And you're very welcome too. We have one bit of business then in our annual meeting of parishioners, which is the election of 2 church wardens for the year 23-24. And I'm again sorry to say I've not received any nominations for the post of church warden this year. And I will again be continuing for 12 months without church wardens unless somebody comes forward in the meantime. Thank you. We've been managing without church wardens as a parish quite well, but we do need church wardens, so please would you pray and think and listen and maybe come and have a chat with me or with Malcolm or Chris, who are our last 2 church wardens, about what the role entails and how we might adapt that job description to be something that you can offer to do if the current one is something that you can't offer to do. Thank you. I declare our annual meeting of parishioners closed. And I hand over to David for our annual parochial church meeting.
Okay, so thank you. So the first item on our agenda is to approve the minutes of the annual meeting. Somebody's pointed out to me that the date is wrong, and on the agenda there it says held on 1st of May 2023. Of course, we haven't yet reached the 1st of May 2023. I'm sure it will be a lovely day, but this is the minutes from the 1st of May 2022. Now this is in the booklet. There is one other copy here if anybody's not got a copy and wants to have one to see.
If anybody hasn't got a copy or wants a printed copy, it's available online, you can print your own. If you want a printed copy, we've been a little sparse to spare resources, because there's a lot of trees going to these. We use a lot of paper and printing the ones we have printed. We want it to be green, and so we haven't printed hundreds of copies, but if you do want one and you haven't got one, again, have a word with me at the end, or email me on office@cumberland.org, and we will print a copy and get it to you this week.
Okay, so are there any amendments that anybody who was at the meeting last year? One amendment.
One small detail, the page 5 under apologies for absence, Evans H is crypted to our surname. There's no H in anything.
I should have said that Angela is very kindly taking the minutes, so thank you very much, Angela. And I must say, it's interesting actually sitting here. This is quite surprisingly difficult for me to hear, and I'm quite deaf. So please do speak up nice and loud if you are speaking. Maybe even say your name so other people know who you are, because we're looking through different churches here. So any more amendments from last year? Okay, would somebody like to propose that we accept these as a correct? Okay, and then if you'd like to second that? Thank you very much, Roger. Okay, all in favour, you must have been here last year, obviously. Okay, anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. So that's approved from last year. So it's over to Jonathan. I've given him strict instructions, 10 minutes, and you're going to have the opportunity for questions at the end. So this is Jonathan's opportunity to talk to us about where we're going, the way forward, looking back and so on, for the next few minutes, and then at the end of the meeting, we'll have an opportunity for questions and discussion.
Is it possible, David, to have that slide up I asked for? I've got one. I've only got one. No, just look at that.
Right, I don't know if you could hear that, but we're looking at this picture here.
Should be on the screen as well. So, I've chosen this picture of a seedling in fertile ground to illustrate our annual report this year. And I want to suggest that this image has quite a lot to say to us as a parish. How did it get there? We don't know. From my relatively limited knowledge of gardening, I would suggest someone's been doing lots of hard work. Clearing, digging, hoeing, enriching, planting, watering, feeding, waiting. And God is a gardener. He clears and digs and hoes and feeds and plants. He's patient with us, waiting for growth. He sows and he reaps. What was growing there before? We don't know. There might have been a mighty tree, or a bumper crop. Maybe there was rubble, or thorns and thistles. Someone will know. But I don't. I don't suppose you do from that picture either. We all have our different memories of our parish in the past. There'll be different things we recall. Many good and wonderful things. Many fruitful things. Some difficult things too. They're part of who we are. Part of our history. They matter. We want to celebrate the past. We want to build on the past. We can hopefully learn from the past. But we can't stay in the past. With God, where we are now and where we go next is far more important than where we've been, or the route we took to get here, or what happened along the way. Here is something new, a green shoot, new life, new possibilities. What will that green shoot grow up to be? I don't know, somebody who recognises plants better than me might be able to tell you. But actually, the thing I have learned is that seedlings all look much the same when they're very little. Whoever planted it knows, assuming somebody happened to switch seeds around. But growing plants all look much the same. Will that be a shrub or a tree, where a weary bird can rest its wings? Will it produce a rich crop of fruit, vegetables or grain to feed a hungry family and enable them to plant new crops in their turn? Will it grow into a beautiful flower and gladden the hearts of all those who pass by? We just don't know. But I'll tell you one thing about it. It's really fragile. It's easily squashed or eaten. Faces any number of threats, any number of pests, diseases, accidents. It needs protection and support. It has a long way to go. There's lots of growing for it to do. That seedling is all about potential. So what am I saying? Have I lost my marbles completely? Well, hopefully not, because what I want to say to you is that we're not where we want to be, but we're further along and in a better place than we were a year ago. It looks to me as if we've turned a corner. We can take a moment today to give thanks to rejoice for that, and to gather some strength for the road ahead. It's important that we do, because to keep heading in the right direction, we need to protect and steward the good growth that's happening. Green shoots in springtime are positive, aren't they? They're a sign of growth, and they point us to the possibility of resurrection. But they're fragile. At PCC, we've been working together with a simple vision in mind over the past few months, building up and reaching out. There are aims for this current season we're in as a church. We want to grow bigger and stronger. We want to see new plants come too. New things happen. We can't make a plant grow, but we can protect it. We can water it. We can give it every opportunity by praying and giving and serving. So those are the three things I want to invite you to do, to respond to today. Firstly, praying. We need to be praying for the growth of our church, but also for each other. It's really hard to fight for someone you pray for. It's hard to gossip about them. It's hard to be unkind to them. And it's often better to pray for yourself, that God will give you more love for someone you find difficult, rather than praying for God to change what you think needs changing. And we've a God who answers prayers. If you want proof of that, I would say to you, look around. Look around not just at one another, but at this place we're standing in. This astonishing new building. He brought us this far together. And as we pray, as we work together, He will take us further. Secondly, I want to encourage you to give. We're going to hear from Roger in a few minutes that, on behalf of the Finance Committee, he'll tell us that the budget at the start of 2023 projected a large deficit. Another large deficit, and of course, that's not a situation we want to be in. If we can't meet our parish share, that negatively affects not only our parish, means the PCC and I are tired of all sorts of meetings about that, probably going to be doing things about mission, but it also negatively affects churches through our deanery and in our diocese too. The good news is that the picture from the first quarter shows again green shoots. Giving has beaten the budget by something like 24%. So we're headed again in a good direction. It's only one quarter. It needs to keep going through the year. But together with God, we can do amazing things. If each person came to one of our churches, one of our services, each month, we're able to raise their weekly giving by about the cost of a decent cup of coffee. £4. £4. What about you? I waste £4 in a week. I'm sure you probably do too. 100 people giving £4 a week for a year would be £21,000 a year. We can do great things when we join together, when we all pull in the same direction. And with the finances in a stronger place, there's much more we can do together. Many more people we can do mission to. Many more people we can share ministry with, offer ministry to. So I want to ask you to prayerfully review your giving. Not least because, with inflation, we've heard a lot about that again this last year. It's been going on every year, it's not just a new thing. If you decided on an amount to give about 10 years ago, that is now worth much less than it was when you first gave it. And if we can all increase our giving by just a small amount together, it will make a massive difference. And then finally, I want to invite you to serve with me. We're again going to be without church wardens this year. We have vacancies to fill in a few minutes for Deanery Synod and PCC. And that's something we share with lots of other churches around the country at the moment. It's hard for people to commit to long-term roles and to commit to formal roles as well. So it's important that we each look at what we can do and don't feel guilty or despairing about what we can't do. Offer what we can offer to God and trust that He will take our little bits and join them all together to do something amazing. Working together, we can do amazing things. Look around you. Church isn't a spectator sport. 30,000 people in need of exercise, watch 10 people in need of rest. I'm a Wickham fan, I've not seen a crowd of 30,000 ever, really, we get about 5. But it's the point, the point is, I think, well, one is there some way in which God is calling you to serve? Is there some way in which God is calling you to get involved? Can you volunteer a few minutes each week to join in with a regular activity? To help tidy something away? To help on a Sunday morning? Or simply to be a better neighbour to the people you live among? Drop a card in, go and invite somebody for a cup of tea. Open your home. To love them and bless them in the somebody you wouldn't normally do that with. I know lots of you do that already. Of course you do it more. That will make all the difference in the world to someone. And help them to find a living faith of their own and well-being. It's not rocket science. We've got to a better place than we were a year ago by working together. By simple churching. Church works. Healthy churches grow. Our priority is to be a healthy community together, around the gospel, around the sacrament, and to continue the good things that are happening. Thank you for your attention. We do have vacancies which I'm going to have over to David for the rest of the meeting, but it's not too late today to stand. We're going to help us out on PCC. So we've been on the electoral roll for 6 months. And we can get somebody to sign a form. There are some forms over there at the back. Come and join us on PCC or come and join us on the list and help us to keep going. But if you can't stand in that formal way, don't feel that about it. Find the things that you can do to help us move forward. Keep moving forward.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Jonathan. So there'll be the opportunity for questions and discussion later on. So the first item we are going to do is to receive a number of reports. And some of these are written and some will be verbal as well. So the first one is a report on changes in the electoral roll since the last APCM. I think there is no paper copy of this, Jonathan.
It's in the booklet on page 16.
16, thank you.
A very short sentence. Jan opened the electoral roll for revision. That revision closed on the 31st of March. And her report to us is that there are now 118 parishioners on the electoral roll, which was a slight rise from last year.
Good, thank you. So a report on the proceedings of the PCC in the last year, you'll have seen, I think that begins on page 15, we met quite a few times and had some very interesting discussions. I'm not going to talk about that in any detail. I generally chair those. If anybody wants to ask any questions, the opportunity comes later on. We met 10 times, as you can see. At the beginning of this cycle, David Tyler joined us. He is now the Archdeacon. He was at that time the Associate Archdeacon, and I think we benefited from his presence. There are a number of subcommittees which are listed on page 15 and 16. Again, as I say, we can talk about questions on that later on. So I think probably with more significance, we go to Roger now for the financial statement for the year ending 31st of December 2022.
My slides are going to here. I'll stand up if that's all right. I've gone around and talking as many of you already went. Here we go. I've only got very few slides. I'm a person that believes a picture matters 1,000 words, okay? There's 21 pages of the official Critchley's audited report for last year. And as somebody said already this morning, we don't want to dwell too much on the past, but we do want to look forward as well. So, we're asset rich and cash poor. Now we're asset rich because we've got this building, and as a capital asset it's worth over £660,000. And the way that accountants do money is that what was given into a restricted fund, i.e. for this building, has now become just a general parish asset. So we have £667,000. You say, wow, that's wonderful. But it's not cash, it's a building. We can't spend it other than use it, as Jonathan said, for outreach. We've actually got £111,000 in the bank. Okay? You know, as well as I do, that we didn't meet a lot during the pandemic years. I'm just talking really from 2019, 2020, which was the worst of the pandemic years, and then 21 and then 22. So I've got some graphs in a minute. The good news is, as Jonathan's already alluded to, in the first quarter of this year, things appear to have levelled out and indeed may even be turning up very slightly. So green shoots, I'm fully supportive of it. And as Jonathan's already warned us, and is indeed a fact, we are not immune from inflation, and particularly utility bills are going to hit us quite hard this year. So we have got to look at ways of managing how we spend money, and with inflation running at 10% currently, you know, it's going to give us a headache. That's why we have a finance committee. Okay, assets. Just really, the key numbers on there are the current assets. Current assets are our cash. In other words, money that we actually have to spend. The fixed assets in pale blue are things like this building. And as you can see, over the years, we've spent all that money to take us up to £667,000, whilst our current assets have been dwindling down to here, £111,000. So that's one story, our assets. So if you look from outside the church at our accounts, it would appear we're in fine state. I'm telling you, yes, okay, but we're not quite as good as it looks. So, income versus expenditure, this is the key one. This is the operational budget. This is what it takes to run our parish. 3 churches, all the people, all the things we do. So first of all, I'll put up the regular giving, and you can see how it's changed over these COVID years, let's call them that. So we used to be at £145,000 in a year, right? That shrank down to a little over 100,000, and then continued to shrink until this is the one that's in the last year's annual accounts, 87,000. I put the red line on really just to say, look, it's been a very bad trend. It's not one you'd want to see. But if I put this up, I hope in 6 months' time, the red line ought to have turned into a dip and be heading back up. So, bear with me. Some other ones, just for information really. Our spending, which obviously is the other side of having an income, we've also tried very, very hard to cut down. And there have been consequences to cutting down. Not least of all, we don't have a parish administrator anymore, which is a sad loss, and you know, Jonathan's wife has been jumping in and doing some of that for us. And we've pretty well got to a point where we can't cut much more, I think I would say. And, you know, we've got to run with that. So at the very least, I've got to get enough income to match our outgoings, if that makes sense. Just like we have to do with our own domestic budgets. Okay, just for information, we do get other income. If anybody asks me, why did it increase so much in the first wave of the pandemic? Anybody want to guess? Possibly the number of funerals we conducted? Well, it's an unfortunate fact. And it includes things like fees, other general donations and various bits and bobs. So anyway, we're very grateful for the legacies, by the way, that we have had. So cash flow, this is the one that your bank manager would be most interested in. You can't see it very well, but in 2019 we had a very small surplus, which was great. Alas, it got worse, and worse, and last year it was not quite so worse, but the one thing you do need to think about though, is if you add up all those deficit numbers, we have had to find that money out of our bank account somewhere. And unfortunately, it's had to come out of things that we would normally have spent on looking after St Michael's and doing other bits and bobs around the parish. So, ideally, in a future world, I would love to be able to top up our reserves, as everybody calls these things. They're your savings, if you like, if you think about it in your own context. They're your savings, and our savings have dwindled. So we need to top them back up. So looking forward, this year, 2023, as Jonathan's already said, it wasn't a balanced budget. It was about 24,000 in deficit. I couldn't do any better than that because I could do nothing better than base it on the level of income we had for last year. And we assumed it reasonably sort of level-ish. But that's the best we could do. However, if you look at Q1 for this year, we got it ever so slightly pessimistically wrong, which I'm glad about. Because that means we have turned the corner. And in fact, for the first quarter, we would have a very, very, very tiny surplus, about 400 quid. So, you know, it's better, let's put it that way. If 2022 was our year of rebuilding, then 2023 has got to be our year of continued growth. If we were stood here a year ago, you would have needed a hard hat on and a yellow jacket because we just put the main rafters up for the roof. April the 8th, in fact, last year, we put the very first rafters up. And by the 16th, we finished the roof. So, that's what a year can do. Let's pray a year can do similar things in our outreach throughout the parish. And I just want to say thank you to all of you guys and girls, all three churches, everybody that supported us. I'm a member of PCC, as you may well know. I'm on the Fabric Committee and on the Finance Committee, and generally try to do whatever I can for this church. I would love some of you to come and help, because it would just make it so much easier for me to share a lot of my knowledge and learning with some of you guys and girls. I say personally, I want to thank all those people that do sit on the Finance Committee and other committees to make life tolerable. How about that? Okay, that's me done. I did say thank you on behalf of Finance Committee, and sorry for my time.
No, you did, thank you. That's very, very good. Thank you. So we return to the agenda. There'll be an opportunity to ask questions about finances later on. So the next item is the annual fabric report.
Which you can find on page 23 of the booklets. Lots of things have been done this year. Tower roof in Protestant Sanders was finished last year. Really the lid on the tower roof. Lots of things happened. Really indebted to the Health and Fabric Committee. Some of them are PCC, some of them aren't. It's another way of getting involved and helping, but that have made a big difference to both of our major church buildings.
Thank you. Okay, and the next report to receive is the Deanery Synods. That goes back in the booklet. That's page 21. I don't have anything to add to what's been said there. I'm not on it. But we can discuss that later on if anybody wants to. So the next thing to talk about is safeguarding. Remember what page that's on? Page 17, thank you. So our safeguarding officer isn't here today, but does a wonderful job in keeping us to the rules that we need to follow for safeguarding. Kate has been fantastic in keeping us all on line. Really, really important, as we know, for organisations like churches and schools as well. Again, we can discuss that later on if anybody wants to ask any questions.
The one thing that's really important to say is that as a parish, Kate is satisfied that we comply with the duty to have due regard to the House of Bishops' guidance on safeguarding children and vulnerable adults. And that sounds like legalese, it's because it is, but we have to officially have that amended each year. If it's true. If it's not true, you've got other problems. But because it's true.
Thank you. So, Roger, we're going to go back to you now about the appointment of the independent examiner or auditor of the PCC account. So, you have a small change which you want to bring to us.
I do, very, very briefly. For years we've used Critchley's as independent auditors. We have had increasing problems with Critchley's, and therefore I thank Malcolm too for all his work with this. And we have a lady who works with us who acts as our bookkeeper, and I think she's as frustrated with it as I am. So I am proposing this year we change our auditors and we change them to Chapman Worth, a small firm out in East Hendrick. I've used them for many years as my company accountants, and Malcolm has used them in another charitable endeavour which he's involved with in Oxford. And I have no hesitation in knowing that they'll do a very good job. So I would like to propose that to you. And if anybody knows any just cause or impediment, please let me know.
Okay, so I think we probably should vote on that actually. Would anybody like to propose that we accept Roger's suggestion, so a nomination over there and a second over here? Thank you. All in favour of making that switch? Okay, thank you. Anybody against? And any abstentions?
Just tell us, what is the name of the firm again? Chapman?
Worth.
Chapman Worth.
Chapman Worth.
Worth.
There are two people's names. Chapman Worth.
Where is their office?
In East Hendrick.
In Easton.
I'll give you the details if you want. I'll actually stick on the minutes and the
Good. Okay, so we just want to say whether any abstentions? Any abstentions to that, or that was, I think, unanimous. Okay, so we're now going on to the election of Deanery Synod reps. So there are 3 vacancies. Deanery Synod representatives stand for 3 years and are automatically on the PCC. I'm not aware of any nominations. I think as before, if you suddenly feel inspired to become a Deanery Synod rep, you could probably do it in the next 30 seconds, but otherwise I'm sure during the rest of this year we can probably find a way. We have it on the floor.
I think Claire Watson said she was prepared to continue, but there may not have been a form put in for her.
Okay, thank you.
Because I think she said she would continue with us.
I guess we can pick that up at the next PCC. Yeah, okay, so thank you very much for that. So we'll look into that for the next PCC. So we still have representative vacancies if anybody wants to stand. So the next one is item 6 on the agenda, election of PCC members. These are straightforward PCC members. We have 7 vacancies, and again they would serve for a 3-year period. I have to say I'm not aware of any nominations. So again, if you feel inspired now or between now and the next few meetings, you can join the PCC, I think, partway through the year, and that's happened in the last few years. So if you want to join us, please do that. Yeah. Okay. So we're moving on fast here on item 7. which is our opportunity for discussion. I'm going to suggest that we allow ourselves up to half an hour here. We're ahead of even my risk timetable. A reputation for risk meetings, I'm afraid, but this is fast even by my standards. So we have half an hour for discussion. Jonathan, I'm sure you want to come back and sit in a minute here. This is going to be primarily to you, I think. So by my watch, I think it's about 7 or 8 minutes to 12. So I suggest we finish completely by 12:30. We have up to half an hour now for people to ask questions. If you do that through me, and I'll pass it on to Jonathan to answer, obviously. So questions or comments on any of the things we've presented this morning?
So I have one, and it's actually to do with the minutes of last year's. And I remember this when Jean Williams asked about the pastoral care and who is in the team, and a suggestion was made it needed to be more formal, and Jean and Jonathan really need to discuss it.
Okay, so Jean is actually at the back there. I don't know if you could hear the questions for. Could you hear that?
Yes, I did.
You did. Good. Better hearing than I am. So between you both, Jonathan and Jean, you want to answer that?
I think that's still an outstanding action. We've not taken that forward, and I would want it to for a year. I'm sure Jean would want it to for a year.
Absolutely.
We do have a meeting that we need to arrange to talk about a number of issues, and I suggest we add that back to the agenda, or add that onto that agenda, and explore some ways forward.
Yes, thank you. So maybe we can make that an item for discussion at the ETC, not the next meeting, but the meeting after.
It was fun.
I'll give you time to get with it, so thank you for the question.
May I attend that meeting?
I'm so sorry.
May I attend that meeting?
I think you're automatically on, you're already on ETC.
We will certainly consider that, yeah.
I think, yes, as I brought up the question in the first place, and we agreed to come to some sort of resolution, if we could follow up that.
Okay, so the two things we've noted from that are, first of all, that's an unresolved matter from last year, and secondly, in some way we'd like to involve you in that PCC according to what the rules allow, and we'll give you a chance roughly 8 weeks, I guess, isn't it, to work on that and come with some presentation to the PCC about that.
Yeah, I only really need to slot in sometime today.
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure
we
we
won't
will.
inflict the whole thing on you.
But, well, I don't mind, I was on PCC for a long time, I didn't mind it at all, but I just say I wouldn't obviously expect to sit on the whole thing.
Good. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. Any more questions? Top number 10.
If I may stand up for a bit.
Yeah.
I just want tonight to start not with a question but with a compliment and thanks. I wanted to compliment and thank Jonathan for all the work that you've done this year. Your report was full of, you talked about hope, a message of hope. Well done. I think you're giving us all a lot of hope. I want to thank you and all your team, all the non-SMU team. Parish Church Council David, we can also just, as laity here, to say thank you to you very much indeed for all the time and effort you've all put in. It's really appreciated. I know how much work on the Fabric Committee, the Finance Committee, you name it, the safeguarding, the work of compliance is pretty demanding for everyone today. So just for all of us, a huge thank you. And with the choir as well, there's many supporters in everything. So if I could, I would clap. There are two questions I'd like us to raise. One is about finance and the other is about pastoral work. And we'll take the first one first and have a little chat about that. Jonathan, you've been pointing out for months that our finances are at the low end, to use your words. I think we're all very aware of that. When we look at the accounts as they're presented according to the Charities Commission format, I have to say that unless you're a chartered accountant, it is gobbledygook. It is almost impossible to understand. I'm a financier, I went through them again, and I had to link one cell with another to understand them. It's not helpful. We do what is right from a compliance point of view with the Charities Commission. But frankly, that's not enough, because none of us really have a clue what's going on. So Roger, huge thanks to you for putting up a few slides to show in layman's terms just what is happening. The fact that we're losing £20,000 a year, £33,000 a year, and the other one so on, is of course a worry. Because you can't go on like that, and if we project ourselves forwards, as we all know, with the rising cost of everything in inflation, life is very difficult for everyone. It is very difficult for organisations of every kind. So, the first suggestion I'd like to make is that for next year, and it may even be possible to put something like this up on the website, that the layman's language of the finances is explained to the laity. Because it's the laity, all of us here, who actually are responsible for the stewardship of our parish. The money comes from us. And this is very important to understand. So we need to understand this shortfall. We need to understand the economics. We need to understand our operating result before we get other monies in and we give money out. Now I do know that the PCC has grappled with the horribly faulty issue of our parish share. And we're all generous people, we all want to give where we can. And the parish share, as we all know, is the giving by one charity to another charity. It is the giving by this parish charity to another charity, which is our diocese. It is not an obligation legally. It is something that we like to do. But one of the things that is very important in our country today, as we become increasingly secular, is that we can look after ourselves. If we can't look after our own community, it gets more and more difficult. Of course we would like to look after everybody everywhere, but we need some anchor points. And I would encourage us here to make sure that this parish is strong and can survive, rather than not. Now, next Tuesday, I happen to be in London. I don't know if anyone else is going to it, but I'm an adherent to something called the Save the Parish movement. And this is a very, very interesting movement, perhaps you all know about it, trying to understand how the laity in this country can support the clergy in this country even better. And one of the problems that has been revealed by studies, which the archbishops are now increasingly aware of, that the overheads of our Church of England in running different dioceses are enormous. When I last spoke to Church House in Kidlington, the receptionist told me...
I'm really sorry to interrupt you. I'm going to ask you to be quick now so we can have more.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Understood. There are 102 people working in Kidlington. This is a terrible drain on overhead. What we need is the money to be kept in parishes to support our clergy and our pastoral work. So, my question to end, Chairman, if I may, is in the giving, the figures that Roger didn't come across about the giving, how much giving do we have in regular format? How many people give? How has that changed over the last few years? Can we track it?
Can I just say,
May I just pause a moment and say about last year, so everybody's aware, we delayed payment of the parish share decision until quite close to the end of the year, and we found ourselves, perhaps unexpectedly, unfortunately, and you may see the hand of God in this, in a position to pay our parish share. So it was a matter of debate on the PCC through the year whether we would be able to pay our final parish share contribution. We were able to do that, but that was a matter that was considered in great detail over many meetings by those in the PCC. Roger, do you want to answer the question?
just very briefly, we do, as a PCC, receive what I would call management accounts. Now that isn't gobbledygook, that is something I think most of you in here could easily understand. It breaks down our giving into what I would call regular giving. It breaks it down into what people give are the parish giving scheme. It breaks it down into CAF, if you're familiar with CAF, and also the amount of gift aid that we collect back as a result of people committing to giving regularly. An interesting one is cash collections, which virtually disappeared during the time when the church was shut, which have picked up fairly significantly of late, so that's good news. So I don't know, I mean, PCC needs to take a decision, but these figures are all available. Those were thank you to Malcolm. There's an ace on the spreadsheet. I thought I was good on spreadsheets. There's a Malcolm. He's brilliant. Anyway, so we have got all of this information. It really is knowing how to share it in a useful and, we're going to say dynamic way, but a way that's meaningful so that people can respond. Well, I'm very happy to have a finance evening, which people are very welcome to come to, and I will go through in detail all these records that we've got, and as the PCC over the years have kept, to just show you what does go on within the parish. And also on the other side of the equation, the expenditure, where money gets spent.
Great, thank you very much indeed.
And also, the financial statement that we provide to the APCM, we are legally required to do so and in that form. So we have to give you that as well. We may be able to give you something different if you want to in the future, different presentations, more information. But actually we have to give you that gobbledygook. And I'm sorry it's gobbledygook, but it's not really something I can do about. It's just, it's the law of the land.
Great, thank you. So Taylor, you had a second question. Can I just ask, do other people have questions before Ted asks his other question? Do other people have burning questions they want to ask? Okay, we'll go back to you, Ted, maybe more questions in a few minutes.
Sorry, I don't mean to monopolise the discussion in any way at all, but thank you. My second question, or theme for us to discuss, is about our pastoral work. Jonathan, thank you for everything you've been doing to encourage the pastoral work on the PCC. And a lot of wonderful work goes on with our coffee pots and our toddlers and everything. The problem we're having in Britain today, generally, in our nation, is our declining congregations. As a country as a whole, 1% of the population says that it goes to church sometimes. 1%. And we know that we want to increase our congregation like everybody. And the question, Chairman, which we want to think about is whether a top-down approach or a bottom-up approach is working. And Jonathan, I don't know where you are in the diocese with this discussion, but the average age in this building here now is whatever it is. It's over 50, shall we say. And if we alienate older people by any practice we have, we lose them. And there are a lot of people in our parish of a certain age who are no longer involved in our parish life, for whatever reason. Jonathan, you've been doing wonderful work reaching out to younger people through the school, through TZs, through all the other things that are going on. If we lose the older people, the example which the older people can give is lost. And I think we need to be very careful indeed across our country about how we manage different segments of society and how we reach out so as not to alienate one at the expense of another. So, linking this with the question of pastoral care, what can we do to help you, Jonathan, to help you, PCC? What would be your messages, your hope, practically and administratively, to help pastoral care to be more active, and have a church which is a vibrant church and a church without walls. Too much of the Britain is in churches with walls, and the real life, of course, goes on in the church without walls. Jesus didn't have any churches at all. So can we just reflect together a little bit on a church without walls and our past?
Okay, thank you. So I give Jonathan the opportunity to respond first of all, and then throw it open for wider discussion. So I think the question fundamentally is, how do we work to ensure that every age group, young, old, middle-aged, feels welcome and able to participate in the many different church activities we've had about?
And I think that's a great question, Ted. Thank you for it. The vision we've been talking about at PCC has been that twofold thing of reaching out, but also building up. And building up is very much about helping the people that we already are, the people who are already becoming more connected or need reconnecting with, to grow, to build each other up, and to be built up as part of a church community, as well as the other side, which is reaching out. And I don't see reaching out as just to the younger people. It's to all of us, but all of these are the job of the whole church. And so we need to be together, caring for one another, loving one another, inviting one another, bringing one another in. Now, we can't necessarily offer everything within the life of our parish that everybody will want. We can't. We don't have the resources for that. We haven't got the people for that. We have to make some choices. Of course we do. We talk together as a PCC about what we're investing in, where we're spending that time, what we're doing. But I would want us to be a parish where everybody is welcome, where everybody feels able to be part of it. And where that's not possible, I'm very sad. And we want to rebuild some of those bridges, some of those links, if they become frayed.
Thank you. Okay, let's throw it open to wider discussion. Would anybody like to comment on any of what's just been said? So, may I just say one thing about the age thing? So, I've been attending these meetings for many years, and all the time I've been a member of St Michael's, and I consistently reckon I've been the youngest man. Now, I started attending meetings at St Michael's in my early 50s. Okay, so you can work out roughly how old I am now. So I'm 70 this year, and I find it staggering that on a regular basis at these meetings, I think I am very often the youngest man present. So I think that is an alarming feature of what's going on. So I've consistently been the youngest man attending the APCM for almost 20 years since we first joined this church. Now, I'm sure that there are younger people than me here today who maybe modestly sitting there thinking, goodness me, I'm much younger than David, but it is, I think, an alarming feature, and it may well be that that's not true for women here. I'm far too gentlemanly even to speculate on the age of any women here. Okay. You can tell me quietly later on. So, I think the point about the age we're aiming at is extraordinarily complex, and I really wouldn't fancy being a vicar, trying to keep all the different age groups engaged. It's very difficult to think how you do that, but I do know this is something that Jonathan has thought about a lot. I can tell you it's something we think about a lot in the PCC. How is it possible to engage all the different age groups? Now, there were one, two people want to say something.
Sue had a hand up as well.
Before you go first.
I'm chair of governors of the school at Cumber. In the next week we'll be trying to get a new head teacher. Head has decided to hire. And so we've been doing a lot of thinking about that. As you know, we already have quite a lot of work going on in the church. And it has been very wonderful to see how much the children have enjoyed coming back to church after 2 years of not being able to come out of school and out of home for many children. But I wanted just to mention the fact that we will be asking people who are coming to see whether they're a person to take over, we'll be asking them about how they feel about looking after a church school. And so there is a huge opportunity there to start again with a new person who will have that opportunity to make something special about being a church school. And we have a great deal of support, obviously, from the diocese as well. So I just wanted to say that I think that that's a really important part of when we really look at the future and younger people. And so I would hope that you will pray for us over the next week.
Thank you very much.
Victoria raises a really important point, actually, which I could have made in response to you, Ted, which is to say, yes, there are 102 people of the working diocese or the church house. Most of them work in education, and they work there because, and they're funded therefore by the academy structure rather than by parish share or the structure. I think it's important that we bear that in mind. I'm not suggesting for a moment that there aren't people at the church house who are perhaps fortunate either. I'm not supposed to say that online, but you could look at dioceses across the country and see them as a little top heavy. I think that's absolutely true. And those questions are asked at diocesan synod, at deanery synod. That challenge is there. And I think that it is worth bearing in mind a lot of them work in education. And we value, as well as that support from the diocese enormously. But just an extra important thing to bear in mind, really.
I mean, I just another comment to that. My wife Grace is an intermittently head teacher of Churchwood school. She's kind of semi-retired now, and the complexity of meeting the safeguarding rules have added hugely to the burden of head teachers and rules sadly aware of recent problems with Ofsted. It's small wonder actually that there's this enormous superstructure in place to ensure that safeguarding is properly done. And this is a really big factor in maintaining the school, the church schools. But that's just a comment from me based on my own experience domestically. Anybody want to add any more comments on choice or one more hand, please?
Just to say that the last 5 or 6 PCC meetings we have looked at this building up, reaching out idea. If anyone has any ideas of activities, groups, one-off events, please feed them through to PCC members or to Jonathan or to the office or to anyone, just so that we consider everybody's ideas to see which of them we've got the manpower to run.
Thank you. Any more comments on that topic? Okay, let's move on to any more questions. If anybody else wants to raise.
Just a brief clarification. Is anything happening coronation-wise about eating together? Are there any, we having any parish? I saw that there's the in-court community centre tea to which everyone's invited, but is there anything happening from the village, do you know?
I know there's a picnic going on in the middle of the Glebe for almost anybody, and I wonder whether we'd be better off encouraging people to go and join in with that.
I just haven't seen any publicity partly because I've been away, but...
Yeah, no, I know to announce. I'm in conversations with bell ringers about whether we could do something like a tower open day that afternoon with some refreshments, but we're not ready to announce that, so, hold it lightly. And I will keep an eye on the newsletter this weekend because it will be in there. If it's happening, if it's not, then it didn't work out. But my feeling in Cumberland Village would be, as we are down here, we don't have to do everything. And actually, very often we're better off going out and being salt and light in new places, in places where people already are. Go and be Christians there, rather than necessarily expecting everyone to come to us all the time. Although we've got these great facilities and stuff.
Can I just say, will we have a concert?
Yes.
Yes, I hadn't forgotten, it's just a question about eating together.
Yes, I have.
Do you want to just say what that event is?
It's a joint effort between a cappella singing group of young men from the university and Hijinks, the ukulele band. So they'll be playing first and then they'll come in afterwards, or Prosecco and stuff, and Lily's in the interval. But they were raising money for a charity which funds children from disadvantaged homes and people who are involved them for a week during the summer from people, youngsters from Oxford.
So that's 7:30, is that right?
7:30
On the Saturday evening, Sunday evening of the coronation weekend. And Warwick.
There is another concert going on the 5th, and there are people here who have been practicing hard for ages for that one. And that one is very much about the King, and talking about his life so far. And there'll be lots of very interesting speeches going on, some of them quite amusing. And there is music being sung which fits in with that. And so it's quite an interesting event. It's in the old school on the 5th, and that's at 7:30.
Just say which day of the week the 5th is, please.
That's the Friday.
So one event on the Friday, 7:30 again,
7:30, yep.
in the school, and
Yeah,
in the old school.
in the old school.
The old school. And the second event on the Sunday evening, again at 7:30 in the church. I think, is that right? Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, so 2 nice events there. I'm sure people have questions and comments they would like to make. While you're just thinking, if I could just say one thing that we thought about quite a bit on the PCC is tying events to the major festivals and trying to put on an attractive range of things. So for example, around Harvest Time, Remembrance Time, Christmas and so on, we felt that we would focus on these really major festivals, and so of course in a sense the coronation is going to be one of those festivals. So as you go through the year, hopefully you'll see that there are a range of events. Another thing we've thought about is this question which I think Ted rightly raises, how to keep on board all the different age groups. So there are many of us who are not comfortable with some of the events for much younger people, and I would be including myself in that, to be quite honest. I'm much more comfortable with Evensong than I am with something that's aimed at toddlers. But when I had very young children, my children have grown up now, and the next generation's on its way, and you know that if you're going to aim at toddlers, it's a different sort of event from if you're aiming at people in the age group that most of us are here. And that's inevitable. And there isn't any activity around the country, I don't think, that's going to hit every button. So hopefully there will be always a wide range of events. Now, one of the problems is that we need people who will actually come and support those events. We need to see people, if we put on a choral Evensong, then we need people to attend the choral Evensong. It's no good just saying we wish there were those events if people don't actually come. So if there's an event you would like, as has just been suggested, please let Jonathan know or let the PCC know, but you must also support it, please. And I think we've all got to support the events aimed at very young children as well, even if you're not comfortable with them. And I struggle with that personally, I really do. I don't particularly like that sort of thing, but we have to think, how do we support this wide range of events?
With regard to events and forthcoming events, on October the 1st, St Michael's will be celebrating 50 years of Andrew laying the order, and people will be in. Please come along to support it.
Indeed. Yeah. And I think that would should be quite formal in terms of music and so on.
It's going to be Evensong.
It's going to be so. So for those of us who love Evensong, that will be an opportunity to be there to support Andrew and also to demonstrate our love of the old prep book, which many of us here will share.
If you don't love Evensong but love Andrew, come anyway. So
Okay, any more questions?
It's not a question, it's a comment. Having been drawn rather unwillingly into working with children in church sort of once a month, I got used to it and got a lot out of it, hopefully put something into it. I'd like to say a word in defence of Big Story Sunday,
Absolutely.
which I didn't actually really intend to go to. I thought, well, I'll go to an early service that week. But in fact, I now won't consider missing it, because I can see what it's trying to do, and although considerably older than the people it's probably intended for, I have never left the service without taking something valuable away to think about.
So I would commend that.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I
John.
think it's perhaps not ideal for a varied congregation that, you know, will avoid some Sundays. But nevertheless, I think it's a good effort and is doing
That's great,
a
thank
good
you.
job.
Thank you. That's a very positive view. Any more questions? Ted?
May I just add one more positive remark to say thank you and congratulations to everybody, and I think particularly you, Jonathan, about the online services and the way the online is working. It was all a bit strange for us at the beginning of COVID, but congratulations to you in helping it work, because there are people in the care homes, elderly people who are just frightened to come out because of COVID, but still 3% of the population has COVID. It's really important and a big victory for you, well done, in making sure that the online works well. It does reach out to a lot of people, so thank you very, very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I've learned an awful lot over 3 years doing stuff like that.
Very nice.
As have others, yeah.
I'm not sure if there was a hand raised at the back there.
My mind was waving, not my hand, but just to add thank you to Amanda for all that she has been doing, keeping the office going. Good for this meeting to prevent it.
Minute dash and pass that back to Linda, thank you. Great, okay, so we're getting close to 25 past, so the last few minutes, any more questions or comments anybody would like to make? Okay, well, thank you all very much for coming today. I hope that's been a positive meeting. There are many green shoots, aren't there? Good things we can think about for the future. So over to Jonathan for our final chat.
Yeah, thank you. Lots to reflect on, lots to rejoice in. Lots of hard work to do as well. Let's pray for God's strength and for God's help as we face that year ahead. Father God, we give you thanks for all of the good things that we've enjoyed in our parish this last year. All of the good things that have happened. We give you thanks for all of the hard things that have happened too, that we've learned from, we can move forward with and from. And we pray, Lord, that as we think about the year ahead, as we turn our attention to the year ahead, that you would fill us afresh with your Holy Spirit. That you would guide us and lead us and empower us as we go into this new day, into this new year. Help us to bring glory to you in all that we do, whether it's as individuals or as churches of this parish. And help us, Lord, to build one another up with your love. And also to reach out with that love to others, be they old or young, or whatever. We ask all of this in Jesus' name. Amen. Can we close with saying the words of the grace together? May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with